Welcome back to NostalgiaCast, where we take a look at childhood favorite films to see if they stand this time or if they're past their prime. I'm Johnny Craddock.
And I'm Darin Lundberg.
And before we get into today's episode, Darin, you think we ought to recap last week's episode?
Okay, just a quick recap. We obviously we did Batman 1989, directed by Tim Burton, Jack Nicholson, Michael Keaton. We kind of broke the rules a little bit because our whole point with NostalgiaCast is to take movies that you'd seen in the Walmart bin or seen on Amazon Prime or whatever and thought, I haven't seen that movie in years, and then you pop it in. So we kind of broke the mold there. I just thought with all the fanboyisms that are out there and the 31st anniversary of the movie was last week. I just thought it was time to revisit a lot of that, which is interesting because in the time we recorded the episode versus now, it's been announced, I don't know if you've heard, that Michael Keaton is actually coming back as Batman in a new movie.
I didn't hear that. Really?
Yeah, it's too nerdy to go into. They're doing like a Flash movie, and there's a very famous comic arc called Flashpoint where Flash he alters the timeline and meets different versions of characters because it's the changes and the, what is it in Jurassic Park? You butterfly touches something and like it reverberates around. It's just that kind of thing where he's changed everything, and so Keaton has signed on to come back as an aging Batman, which is exciting news. Which is, again, weird because in between us recording then and now, that news had come out. But we did go ahead and talk about the movie, and where did we land on it?
Well, I believe we both agreed that it could have been remade, and it has been remade, right? Several times. But I think we both enjoyed the look of the movie. We both liked some aspects like the design, the music was great. And it's a fun movie to watch. It's an entertainment movie, but it just fell short in some of their, like the acting. Some of the choices with the acting kind of fell short for me. But overall, I still enjoy the movie.
Right. And we don't want to start an argument. Again, I think my issue with the movie, it's great to look at. It's definitely a part of a lot of people's childhoods. I just think as far as context goes, it expects you to know the whole Batman mythos before you even walk in, which personally I think is a mistake. Unless it's a sequel, which is a very different kind of animal. When I walk into a movie, I walk in going, okay, director, how are you going to convince me that this world is worth my time? How are you going to convince me that this character is worth rooting for? How are you going to convince me that this person's rooting against, that kind of thing? And I just don't feel like that was part of, you're expected to know things about this character. Otherwise you don't, it's hard to step out, right? It's hard to step out and look at, well, if I didn't know anything about this character, how would I feel about anything going on? And I just think a lot of that, I don't know anybody's motivations. There are scenes that just end weird for no reason. There's not a lot of purpose to a lot of the stuff. The guy that we're going to talk about, the screener we're going to talk about today, his big thing is he talks about intent versus obstacles. There's intention and there's obstacles in a scene where a character walks in having a goal and then he has somebody that opposes him. Right. And so in Batman, there's not really a lot of that. It's again, it's Joker versus Batman because that's what you saw in the comic. So that's kind of where we came down on that. Again, we're not trying to make enemies. I don't want this to be start arguments. Again, with the Keaton thing coming back, I just see a lot of stuff on Twitter, people going, well, Keaton was obviously the only good Batman. Every other Batman has sucked. Bale sucked. Affleck has sucked. And I'm like, it's okay to like all these different versions of characters. You don't have to.
What are they going to say if Pattinson comes out and just like knocks it out of the park? What if he's the best Batman? We don't know it yet.
Yeah. Or he could be the worst. I dread the comparisons. That's all. I don't want to start an argument. I don't want to be part of that fan culture. It's just, you revisit these movies from when you were a kid and they just mean something different because you grow out of them or grow into them, I guess. So, but I guess we've talked enough about Batman. What's our topic for this week?
Well, this week we're going to do A Few Good Men.
Okay.
Tom Cruise. Again, Jack Nicholson is in it, along with Demi Moore, Kevin Bacon, and Kevin Pollak, and the rest of Hollywood. So we'll get into that one.
Okay, sounds good. Let's talk about that. But first, here's the trailer.
You ever served in an infantry unit, son?
No, sir.
Ever served in a forward area?
No, sir.
Ever put your life in another man's hands, ask him to put his life in yours?
No, sir.
We follow orders, son. We follow orders or people die. It's that simple. Are we clear?
Yes, sir.
Are we clear?
Crystal.
All those having business with this general court-martial, stand forward and you shall be heard.
The facts of the case are these. On midnight of September 6th, the accused entered the barracks room of their platoon mate. They woke him up, tied his arms and legs with tape, forced a rag into his throat. A few minutes later, a chemical reaction caused his lungs to begin bleeding. He drowned in his own blood and was pronounced dead at 37 minutes past midnight.
You think Santiago was murdered?
Private Santiago is dead, and that is a tragedy. But he is dead because he had no code. He is dead because he had no honor. And God was watching.
How do you feel about that theory?
Sounds good to me.
I'll knock it all down to involuntary manslaughter.
No deal, we're going to court.
No, you're not.
Why not?
Because you'll lose.
You want to investigate me? Roll the dice and take your chances. I eat breakfast 300 yards from 4,000 Cubans who were trained to kill me, so don't think for 1 second you can come down here, flash a badge, and make me nervous.
Your men follow orders and people die.
You want answers?
I think I'm entitled.
You want answers?
I want the truth!
You can't handle the truth! Son, we live in a world that has walls, and those walls have to be guarded by men with guns. Who's gonna do it? You?
That if this case is handled in the same fast food, slick-ass, Persian bazaar manner with which you seem to handle everything else, then something's gonna get missed.
In the heart of the nation's capital, in a courthouse of the United States government, one man will stop at nothing to keep his honor, and one will stop at nothing to find the truth.
So, A Few Good Men, 1992, directed by Rob Reiner, starring very little-known actors, Tom Cruise, Jack Nicholson, Demi Moore, Kiefer Sutherland is in there for a bit. We both have, how would you say, a rich history with this movie. Is that how you'd put it?
Yeah, for sure, yeah.
Okay. So I guess let me lead with the question, why A Few Good Men? Why did you choose that for this week's topic of conversation?
Okay. A Few Good Men, I have a really deep fondness for this movie. And it kind of dates back to our high school days. And first of all, I want to mention my first exposure to this movie. And I think I was watching either the Golden Globes or People's Choice or something. Some kind of award show was on. And I was watching them play the clips of the actors and them giving them their little moment that they showed, you know, Tom Cruise nominated for Best Actor or whatever. And I remember watching him do the scene where he says, don't tell me what I know when I don't know, I know the law. He gave that speech. And I remember thinking when I watched that little clip that his performance was, you know, that I could tell that he was acting. And that was my first thought was, oh, I can tell he was acting. That was fake. That was my first thought. And it's funny that that's my first thought because I love his acting in this movie and I love that scene. And it took watching this movie over and over again to finally realize how good his performance really is. But my first exposure of it was, that wasn't very good.
Their fate was sealed the moment Santiago died. Do you believe they have a case? You and Dawson, you both live in the same dream world. It doesn't matter what I believe. It only matters what I can prove. So please, don't tell me what I know and don't know I know the law.
Was that your first exposure to Tom Cruise or the movie?
To the whole movie. I didn't know what A Few Good Men was until I was watching this award show. And I didn't even know, you know, it was a play. I didn't know anything about it. But the awards came on, and like I said, I forgot what it was. It was something. Golden Globes, probably.
Yeah.
And they showed his little clip, and I remember not liking his clip and not thinking it was very well done. And but anyway, then in high school, you and I, we kind of entered this acting competition thing. And I did a scene from another movie, and you, along with another good friend of ours, you did A Few Good Men, and you played Tom Cruise's part, you know, Lieutenant Caffey. And I remember like just working with you guys and watching you guys rehearse this scene, the courtroom scene at the end, the truth scene.
You can handle the truth, right?
Let's call that. But I'm watching you guys rehearse that scene over and over again. and just really falling in love with it. And just being like, wow, this is really good. Like the writing was good. You guys, the way you performed it was excellent. And I just, honestly, I could sit and watch you guys rehearse that scene and not get tired of it. I was always in heaven watching you guys rehearse that scene. I'm not even joking. Like, I loved doing that. And then one day after school, you invited me over after we'd already rehearsed your scene to your place to watch the movie. So the first time I saw the movie was actually at your house.
Oh, okay.
Down, we watched the movie, and I was instantly, again, I fell in love with it. Because I'd seen you guys rehearse it, so I knew a lot about it. I hadn't read the play yet, but I wanted to, and I saw the movie, fell in love with it. Saw that scene that I thought he wasn't very good in, in the Oscar Golden Globe clip, and I thought, oh, you know what? That works. In context, that works. The performance in that moment worked. When you take it out of context and just kind of show it as a clip, it looks like he's just screaming for no reason. So that's kind of why I thought, oh, that wasn't very good acting. So it took me watching the entire movie in its entirety to see, oh, that was really well done. That was a good performance. There was emotion behind that. There was a reason for why he did what he did. And so it took me, a little bit to appreciate the performance, but, over time I did. But also I want to say this, this movie, I've seen it, like I say, hundreds of times. I don't even know how many times I've seen this movie. But whenever it's on, I have to watch it, and I sit, and I'm transported back to high school, to the time when we were just kind of, carefree. We're coming into our own as actors. We were like, just learning all we could about the craft, and so this movie transports me back in time to that moment in time where I was like, just, super happy in my life. It was a moment where I was content with almost everything that was going on in my life. I had a lot of things going right, and I can look back on that time and think, wow, that was great. And so this movie kind of takes me to that place. And so, like, no matter where I'm at in my life now, I can watch that movie and go, back in time to when I was in high school again, and when it was a lot of fun. So, but honestly though, I do think you and your performance in that scene was really good, like really, really well done. And I know I told you that then, but I still think of it. I still think of watching you two rehearse and almost being jealous that I wasn't in it with you. You know what I mean?
Right.
But again, you guys did really well. I think you placed 4th, something like that, in the competition. You did really well.
Yeah, we just missed out. What did they? I can't remember. Wow, that was a long time ago. Like, they had awards, like kind of a gold, silver, and bronze, I guess. So they had 3 people that got awards.
Yeah.
So I don't know if it's official that we got 4th. We had a lot of people that came out and said, you guys were next in line. So I think us being dorky high school kids are like, oh yeah, that means we're 4th. So we assigned ourselves that. But yeah. But no, I appreciate that. We workshop. I remember workshopping that like forever. I know that it was Brad Fulton, was that his name? Because he'd played the part too, and he worked us hard trying to get that scene down, like every line of dialogue.
It showed too. It showed you guys put a lot of effort into it. It was really well done.
Well, I guess it helps too that scene is just really well written. I mean, we'll get into that kind of, but it's the kind of scene that you can sink your teeth into and have a lot of fun doing the dialogue. You know what I mean? Which is a good Sorkin thing.
I remember you guys coming out of one of your rounds during the competition and saying that the judge was like, if you took out any swearing, put it back in. So you guys put back in all the swearing. So, and then we were like, well, it's because you swore. That's why you got to the final round.
Yeah. That's weird. That's a weird world to live in. But
anyway, so that's my history with it. Like I say, I wasn't too impressed initially, but it took watching you guys rehearse that play and then watching the movie to finally really appreciate it. And then now, like, I watch it and I'm mesmerized every time I watch it, just how great I think it is.
Okay. Well, I know what you're saying about watching things in context. I've seen scenes. Again, I remember being really excited when Batman Begins came out and they showed a clip of Michael Caine talking with young Bruce Wayne, and the way that it was cut, like watching it on TV, I was like, what? Like, it was weird. Like, I was like, that, I don't know if that, but then when you see it in the context of the movie and you're kind of used to the rhythmic, like the editing and the pace, then it fits perfectly. But a lot of times you see stuff. So I can definitely see what you mean by that. thinking about it, I don't have any recollection of the first time me ever seeing this movie. I think my memories of it begin with the play and rehearsing that scene. And then again, watching it, I've seen it dozens of times, maybe not hundreds like you, but I've seen it enough that when I started watching it again this past week, all those, like you said, those nostalgic memories came flooding back. Like, oh my gosh, like I know this dialogue. I remember studying this dialogue like crazy. And I think I'd memorized the whole play at one point. And I was telling my wife the other day that I even walked around with a baseball bat.
My bad. I think better.
You know how Tom Cruise, I even did that, like to kind of get into the mindset of the character. So it was just weird. All the memories coming back of knowing that play backwards and forwards, which is not to say that I know it backwards and forwards now, because I can't remember a lot of the finer details, like what was different. What,
as far as the play versus the screenplay, the play is just basically more theatrical. It's all, it has more stage directions in it. Obviously, it has more like lighting sequences that kind of are important, like, and certain vignettes pop up over different parts of the stage. You know what I mean? But as far as the movie goes, it's obviously set in the real world, so it's more theatrical and it's more cinematic. Sorry, yeah. But I remember thinking, I read the play after the fact, and I remember thinking that the movie is a better script. Like, this is just a better script. It's the story is more well told in the screenplay than it is in the play.
Yeah. Well, I was thinking that about Aaron Sorkin too. Listening, I mean, his dialogue, like the crispness and the the snappiness of it, it's there. There's just not a lot of his more political leanings or a lot of the themes that came. This was more of a straightforward Hollywood entertainment package. Does that make sense? Mm-hmm. Like the dialogue's really good and snappy, but it doesn't. Like I said, I think his writing got more rich as he went on. So it's about more things. I don't know if that makes sense. This movie is just about itself instead of about a wider context.
Yeah, I actually like that it's not political. Because I honestly, I kind of stopped following Aaron Sorkin once he got too political. Like, I can't watch his stuff anymore. You know what I mean? I could, and I do appreciate what a good writer he is. And there are moments in some of those, political movies that he's written that you're like, yeah, still good dialogue, good writing, but I don't like when they inject their politics into things. I just want to watch a good story, with some good acting and that kind of thing.
And there are times like The West Wing is available on Netflix, and there are times that I'll just put it on just so I can hear he calls it, like when Sorkin studied and he watched plays as a kid, and then he wanted to start writing his own dialogue. He thought of it as like music, is what he says. And so The West Wing, like when you hear those characters talk, there's a musicality to their dialogue. So it's like comforting that there are smart, funny people talking in front of you, and it's good to have that in your ears, and it kind of makes you feel smarter when you're listening to it. But I agree with that. This is more, before he started leaning into that, because he's very heavy into his politics. And that's a lot of what he's criticized for. I agree with you. I kind of like that it was more concerned with just this thing, instead of like, the Democratic Party or the Republican, which, again, he's very literate at doing that stuff. But sometimes I agree with the critics. It's a little bit much, and it stops being entertaining after a certain point.
Right. Yeah, I agree with that.
So, I mean, obviously Aaron Sorkin, people know, like, this is his first play or second play. He wrote like a couple of short plays before.
Yeah, I think so. All I know, I think it was his first screenplay, though, because he was like, I've never done it before, never written a screenplay before. Like, well, just write it down, and we'll get someone else to put in all the, how the format goes. Just write it down, and so I thought that was kind of cool that he just kind of, the fact that he could take what he did in the play, which is very different actually, and make it into this, what it becomes in the movie is just, I think it's amazing.
Right.
The change in because I think, like I say, it got better.
Yeah, I think when he wrote the play, like he sent it to, he got an agent, and then David Brown, the famous producer who did Jaws and The Sting, he bought the rights before the play even debuted on Broadway. Because I think the writing is that strong, and it's got a very, a lot of people don't know this, but A Few Good Men is actually based on a real case where.
Yeah, no, I didn't.
Yeah, okay. I didn't know that actually until today. I started researching a lot. So I was like, oh, did he get this from somewhere? And yeah, there was a case of these 10 guys that there was a guy that reported a fence line shooting or something, and so they tied him up and they beat him up and they shaved his head and they shoved a rag down his throat, and then he choked on it, just like the movie. The guy didn't die, but these guys, I think 8 of them agreed to be dishonorably discharged because of the incident, and then 2 of them didn't and went to trial. So that's where it came from. And it's, I guess it has that hot button. It's about something. It's got a nice hook, I guess you could say.
Yeah.
And then the dialogue is, again, once you hear that dialogue, it's oh, this would work as a movie. And that's where just recently I listened to an interview with Rob Reiner, and he kind of took Aaron Sorkin under his wing and taught him, like Sorkin is famous for the walk and talk, right? Where they have characters wandering down long halls and they talk about but originally in the script, I think it was Kathy and it's Jack Ross, right? They were talking, it was just in an office, and Rob Reiner was like, we got to make this more cinematic. We can't just have them sit. Let's have them get up and walk, and that's when they have the business with the donut and say how to Castro for me. That's where the walk and talk was born, and that kind of became his staple.
Okay, cool.
So,
No, that's a good scene, actually.
Yeah.
But it's funny, there's actually all kinds of little business like that in the movie where Cappy's always eating an apple or playing with a pen or drinking some water. He's always doing something. You know what I mean? It's kind of, or playing with the baseball bat like you mentioned.
Right.
So he's always doing something like that, which is kind of cool.
So I noticed, again, our topic we're talking about is obviously the writing, and his writing, I'm not sure if you feel this way, but I think this is a lot of people's consensus. His dialogue is really smart. When people talk, they sound smart. You know what I mean? These sound like intelligent people, and sometimes it's funny because it's like they'll be talking about stuff and you'll be like, I don't know what they're talking about. Like, I don't understand what they're saying, but it sounds so smart that you're with it. But then he'll stop and he'll have like little bits of dialogue that'll help you catch up. Like Sam saying, I've got some oregano. I heard that works pretty good. You know, that kind of thing, where it gets you, it locks you back into the dialogue. So it
right, yeah.
I kind of liken it. I was thinking about it today, and a lot of people nitpick the Paul Greengrass Bourne movies. You know how they're the shaky cam, but he does a similar thing in his action movies where there'll be action. It's hard to tell what's going on, but then he'll have a shot of Jason Bourne grabbing a parking brake or turning the wheel really quick. That's not shaky cam. It's just a solid, easy to pick up information shot, and that helps you recenter a lot of the time when you're watching the action scenes. That's what Sorkin's dialogue kind of seems like. Is he'll be talking smart and you'll be lost, but you'll still be having fun because they're smart. But then he'll have kind of a down to earth line of dialogue, a funny line of dialogue that'll help you readjust to what he's talking. Do you feel that way about him?
Yeah, I can see what you're saying. Yeah.
Is this funny, sir?
Yeah,
No, it's not.
I mean, I can't.
It's tragic.
I can't really think of too many instances where he does that, but I guess I can see that.
Yeah. And then I noticed too that there's a lot of scenes, I have it in my notes, there's a lot of scenes where it's just characters in a room sitting or standing, just talking to each other. There's not a lot of movement. And it was weird watching it this time. It reminded me of Star Wars Episode 2 for a weird reason. Because in that movie too, there are scenes where characters are just sitting, talking. After a few lines of dialogue, one character will stand up, they'll walk to the edge of a room, they'll have more dialogue, they'll turn and face each other. So it's very stagey in those movies, and you notice it. And I think you notice it in the Star Wars movies because the dialogue isn't entertaining or enjoyable, I guess. It's very stilted, and there's no snap or fight to any of that dialogue. But in this one, again, I noticed that characters, like there's a scene where Jessup and Kendrick and Markinson are sitting, they're trying to discuss what's going on with what's
Santiago.
his name? Santiago, right? And the motivation, Nicholson gets up and he chats with Kendrick. He sends Kendrick out of the room, and then he has the guy come in and talks to him, and then he goes and he sits on the edge of the desk to talk to Markinson. So a lot of the motivation for the staging, it works for me because it didn't seem stilted. But the other thing is the dialogue is so good and so entertaining that you don't notice that they're just kind of sitting there. Does that make sense?
That makes sense.
And I like that. Like, screenplays and movies, they're not about dialogue. I know we get caught up in the dialogue a lot of the time, but they're called motion pictures for a reason. That's why Rob Reiner had invented or put in, I'm not sure if he invented it, but that was definitely one of the first instances of the walk and talk, where you have to make it cinematic. You just can't have it be a play where they're just sitting in a room just talking, because you know what I mean? And a lot of people will say, well, Tarantino like has scenes like that, but not everybody is a Tarantino. You know what I mean? Yeah, you have like Preston Sturges is a good the Coen brothers, all these writers known for their dialogue. They're entertaining enough that if they're just sitting, you're entertained so much by what they're saying that it doesn't matter, there's not a lot of movement.
Yeah, the business in the scene should make sense for the scene, I think. If it doesn't require any business, then there shouldn't be any. If the dialogue's all needed, that's all you need. But if, a lot of times you'll have people with weak dialogue just throw business at the scene because it needs something, you know what I mean? Because it's got weak dialogue. But it's nice to have, strong dialogue and also, some kind of business that makes everything even more interesting to look at.
Well, the thing with the apple, Tom, I've always thought that someone chewing an apple, they kind of have like a douchebaggy kind of a persona to them. And so with Cruise eating that apple, I'm not sure what it is. I think it reminds me of maybe Star Trek 2. There's a scene where Kirk is eating an apple and he's just being very cocky while he's eating it. So that's why I associate it with that. But Cruise eating an apple in that scene, it makes him, because he's a hot shot, he's a hothead, right? So I think that kind of suits him, the way that he's like smacking his lips and he's rubbing his hands. I think that works for the character.
Yeah, I think so too. I love that scene, by the way. It's a great scene. In fact, I think that business always makes me laugh when I see him like looking for a garbage can and like wiping his hands and
right.
I love that.
He it's very. What do you think about? Again, Aaron Sorkin's dialogue is so you have to be on the ball to get it. And some of his actors, like in The American President, which is a very good show, Michael Douglas, there are times where he kind of trips over the dialogue a little bit because you have to be really good at it. And I can't think of any, but they're like, he can't pronounce the word sweetie, like it comes out weird, or he has these long monologues and sometimes it doesn't, he kind of gets a little tongue tied some of the time. But how do you, I think of like Philip Seymour Hoffman in Charlie Wilson's War. He's really good with Sorkin dialogue. Tom Hanks obviously is good with The Social Network. Everybody in there is really, even Justin Timberlake really latches onto that dialogue.
Yeah, that was really well done. I think I like that one.
Yeah. How do you feel about the actors latching onto the dialogue in this movie?
Honestly, I think they all did a really good job. I think they all brought their A game.
Court, they won't need a lawyer; they'll need a priest.
There is one thing I want to mention, maybe a little bit later, but as far as Tom Cruise and Demi Moore and Kevin Pollak and Kevin Bacon, I think they all nailed it. I think they just they, like I say, they came to play. They did a really good job with these characters, and they brought them to life as you're supposed to. But anyway, the one thing I want to mention is Jack Nicholson. From watching the commentary with the director's cut, whatever, you see, you hear him say, Rob Reiner say, I told Jack to kind of ease up on when the camera's not on him. Don't give it your all when you're not on camera. We don't want to we want to save some for when you're on camera.
Yeah.
And Jack turns to him and was like, you don't understand, I'm an actor. I'm going to give it my all every take, every time. And it's funny because when you know that he's giving it his all every single take, and then you kind of know he probably wasn't the first person to be shot. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
They probably shot Tom Cruise. They probably shot Demi Moore. They probably shot, other angles. And then when they finally turn the camera on Jack and he does that, stand on the wall speech, honestly, I can kind of see that he was tired. He had been giving it his all this entire time while they're shooting this scene. And he looked tired to me. When you know that he was giving it his all every time, you can kind of tell maybe he should have saved, some of that energy for his performance when the camera was on him.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Not that he didn't do a good job, but I think it would have been better had he actually done what Rob Reiner said and saved some of that energy for when the camera is actually on you.
Right. I can see. I think I read a story of that too during the scene at the end. I think he performed that monologue like a few times so they could get coverage and get people's reactions. we'll get to the acting in a little bit, but I do agree with maybe you should save it. I also think too, like, if Nicholson's doing that at full force, like, if you're getting a reaction, you want him to give his all, right? I mean, obviously that way you get a fresher reaction off of the people watching him.
Right.
But I absolutely do. I think he performed it like 6 or 7 times just so they could get that everybody's coverage. But there's something in that of having the camera on somebody's face as Nicholson's doing that you get a more honest reaction, like a more wow kind of reaction from him. So I agree. I absolutely see your point, but I do like that it's just as rich, you know, for everybody every time, kind of getting that. Maybe he could have done it different every time, so it gets a different reaction from people that has the same effect. I don't know, but I do agree with you.
One other thing with Jack is at the very, very end when he's being arrested, there's a moment when he is finally arrested and Tom Cruise says that line, "You're under arrest," or whatever, and Jack gives this like weird look, like he like looks over like that for some reason. It's like really kind of out of character, out of place look, and I always wondered why they keep that in there. Why is that look in there? You know what I mean?
Being charged with a crime?
Yeah.
He still wouldn't give that kind of a look being in the position that he's in. You know what I mean? He's this, you know, colonel or whatever. He's not gonna show weakness ever, even when being arrested. You know what I mean? And so I was kind of like, that's why it seems so out of place now. And I think that reaction and that look, I think, is when he broke character for the first time. Because I think it felt awkward for him to react that way. It might have been a direction, I don't know, but it was. You can tell that look did not fit the character, did not fit the moment.
Right. Okay.
It's always bugged me. It's like one of those things that's, when I watch it, it's like, why does he have to react that way in that moment? This guy is tough. He's strong. He's never going to admit he's wrong. He's never going to admit he's weak. And to have him kind of like go and look all weird and look like he's been caught, whatever. It's like, no. Even you know, these kind of people when they're wrong and they know they're wrong and they're found out that they're wrong, they're not going to admit it, you know what I mean?
Absolutely. I kind of see it as like, I do agree with. I see it, and sometimes I wonder: is he looking at the jury? Because the jury's not there anymore. Like, they dismissed the jury. You know what I mean?
That's the wrong direction. The jury's on the other side of the courtroom. So he looks the other way for some reason.
What is he looking at? Yeah, that's an interesting choice. Yeah,
it's weird. Yeah, it's a weird moment.
Well, I think the funny thing, like, as I watched it this week, I texted you and I was like, "Man, Cruise is really nailing this dialogue, isn't he?" I think. You know, Tom Cruise in this movie. Have we talked enough about the writing that we can move on to the acting? Is there anything else you want to say before?
Let's go to the acting.
Okay. Well, Tom Cruise. The way that it's the typical Tom Cruise role at that point, right? It's like he's like the cocksure hot shot. He marches into a situation. He thinks he's got control, but he's really got weaknesses, and he's humbled just a teeny little bit, so he comes out better on the other side. You know, it's the same in Far and Away. It's the same in Cocktail. It's the same in even Rain Man to a degree. But especially Top Gun, especially since you have the father-son scenario going on in this movie. But it's the typical. I know people like this. Tom Cruise has like a big screen aura about him, but the way that like I said, Michael Douglas has a hard time sometimes in American President. Tom Cruise, I think he nails every single line of dialogue in this movie. He bites into, and it's just, he handles it so well. It fits his character so well. Even the sarcastic parts where he's like, you know, Kirby, you open your eyes, you're gonna improve your factor by 10, you know, stuff like that. I get angry a lot because he's got that screen persona, but I think he's a really, really good actor. Like, you see him in the scene with Nicholson, and you see like the frustration, and it's even the I know the law scene. He can go up against these guys. He can go up against the Philip Seymour Hoffman. He can go up against the Dustin Hoffman, and he matches them. I just think he's got that persona, but he's also a really strong performer. I think he's a great actor. And then I don't think you have to look any farther than this movie to see that. He just really nails every little line of dialogue and every emotion.
Yeah, I agree. No, I think honestly his performance in this movie is one of my favorites, and I actually really prefer when he does roles like this. I don't like it when he does the big action movies and the Mummies and the Oblivions and whatever else he's done. Movies like this, and even ones like Collateral, and he plays a bad guy, or Tropic Thunder, where he plays, Les Grossman. Characters like that. When Tom Cruise actually acts and does something different than being an action star, I love it. I freaking love it.
Well, we're at a part now, like he's good at defying death and all the stunts for the Mission Impossibles. That's kind of what we want to go see now for him. But then when he does a movie like, I think it was American Made, was that the name of it, that he did with Doug Liman?
I actually saw that like 2 weeks ago. It's pretty good. It's not bad.
So when he does something like that, go ahead. Sorry, I interrupted you.
It's one of the better ones he's done recently.
Yeah, but it didn't make any money at the box office because he's not trying to kill himself, right? I mean, he can branch out, but nobody goes to see that stuff that shows off what a more quality actor that he is. They just want to see him in the Mission Impossible movies, which I like, but he's capable of much more than that, than just being Buster Keaton or Jackie Chan, that kind of thing. But yeah, I just think that's, I don't know. And then, so Cruise is really good. I think we just talked about Batman last week. I think this is a much better Nicholson performance. I wrote it down in my notes that Nicholson is really doing the Anthony Hopkins as Hannibal Lecter in Silence of the Lambs thing, where he has a very, very minimal role. I think he's in maybe 3 or 4 scenes in this.
Yeah, 4 or 5, I think, actually.
But he's so forceful, and he only worked for like 10 days on set. And he's so forceful, and he makes such an impact that his character hangs over the entire movie.
Please tell me that you have something more, Lieutenant. These 2 Marines are on trial for their lives. Please tell me that their lawyer hasn't pinned their hopes to a phone bill.
That's great acting.
Yeah, I actually heard a story where during the first read-through of the script, they were kind of reading their lines, kind of blasé, just kind of giving the lines that, because it's only a read-through, you know what I mean? And then he comes in and says, who is Santiago, you know what I mean? And all of a sudden they all go, oh crap, we have to actually act even at the table read, you know what I mean? So he kind of brought everybody up to a different level just from his first line at the table read. So
right. And I don't think there's any argument that Jack Nicholson is one of the best actors of his time. He's definitely he was a get. Again, when they got him for Batman, that was a huge sign that this movie meant business. You've got Nicholson in your movie. Holy crap. It had the same, I believe it had the same impact as getting Marlon Brando for Superman. It just had that, well, this has raised the stakes now. Everybody has to raise their game. And like I said, I don't think he has a lot of dialogue that's the Sorkin smartness, the snappiness of that dialogue. But he's, like I said, like we talked about earlier, he just sinks his teeth into every line of dialogue that he has. And he makes an impression that's just, again, just wow. You watch him and you're like, yeah, I'd be scared of this guy. Even though in real life, he's probably a nice guy. Like for all accounts, he's a nice, personable guy. And he was there, and he did, like I said, he did the 10 days, but he did also a free day because they didn't get all the coverage they needed. And he was happy to do it because he just was having such a good time. So I think he gives just as good as he gets. What did you think of Demi Moore, our next big cast?
Yeah, I thought she was great. Like I say, again, one of my favorite movies she's been in. I'm not a huge Demi Moore fan by any means, but like I think she's really good in this movie, and she does a great job.
Right.
Don't look now, Danny, but you're making an argument.
Yeah. Tomorrow morning, I get them a new attorney.
Why are you so afraid to be a lawyer? Were Daddy's expectations really that high?
Well, I think she does a good job too. I wanted to ask you a question of how you feel about her character. Even she, like the path of least resistance monologue that she gives Kathy, she kind of runs out of breath. And so that's kind of what I'm talking about, is that the Sorkin dialogue is so rich and so there's so much of it, I guess, that sometimes you do get tripped over it a bit. And I kind of felt that way about her in that particular scene.
I thought that was a pretty good monologue. And I can see what you're saying, she had being out of breath, but I still thought it was delivered well. It was still, she still got through it. She still gave it a good delivery.
Yeah, I agree with it. Well, what do you think of her character? Do you think the backstory is that when they were going over the script, Sorkin got a note saying, why does this girl, if she's not going to sleep with Cruise, why does she have to be a woman? Why can't you just make her a man? And Sorkin wrote back, because not every woman's goal in life is to sleep with Tom Cruise. You know what I mean? But, and there are women in the military, all that. She gets a fair shake. But do you feel like her character is necessary for the plot? Do you think she's...
I think it brings good balance. because it is mostly a male, driven cast.
Yeah.
So I think it brings balance. However, I've always kind of thought that it would have been nice to know that maybe after the case was over, that maybe they, had the idea of possibly getting into a relationship, down the road. Maybe it was a possibility they might get together. I was kind of always hoping for that.
Seafood? I know a good seafood place.
You asking me out on a date?
No.
Okay.
You don't need to see it during the movie, as per, so much, but it'd be nice to know that they might have a chance. You know what I mean?
Right.
Later on.
Well, I read in the original draft of the script that it ended with he asked her out and she said, you just need to wear matching socks to the date, but they moved that to early, or they didn't move it, but they thought that was going to be a good callback. Just the way that it's in the movie is, she smiles at him like she's proud that he's actually made something of himself. She walks out of the courtroom like they're never going to see each other again.
We'd rather have them walk out together, or or maybe, just leave it open that they could possibly still, have something there.
Right.
You don't have to see it. Just give us the idea that it might happen.
Yeah, but again, it's refreshing that they don't have to do that. Again, they go on their date or whatever, and then Cruz is like, "Do you have to give me your resume whenever you talk to me?" It is refreshing that there doesn't have to be that part. And then, so we've talked about Cruz and Nicholson and Demi Moore. I like that the cast is populated with people that are either big stars now or people that you've seen dozens of times, even if you don't recognize them. It was nice seeing Christopher Guest pop up.
Yeah, that's cool.
A lot of people don't. He's Count Rugen, right?
Right, yeah.
And a lot of people don't realize. Cuba Gooding Jr. pops up. Noah Wiley pops up. Xander Berkeley is in it for a little bit. You just have a lot of people in there. Like, oh, I know that guy. Oh, I know that guy. Or and it was funny going, oh yeah, Tom Cruise is in Jerry Maguire with Cuba Gooding Jr. Or oh yeah, like Cuba Gooding Jr. was in As Good as It Gets with Nicholson. It was nice kind of piecing those things together.
That's fun.
And obviously Kevin Pollak has the Kevin Pollak lines. What do you think of him? Did you think he had a big enough part?
Yeah, I mean, I think he was adequate. He was fine. Like I say, everybody in this movie actually had a moment to shine too. That's what was so great about it. They all had their little moment in the sun where, like, Kevin Pollak had that whole what was his speech all about? The whole
they didn't like him, so they killed him. And why? Because he couldn't run. Yeah.
Right. Yeah. They all had those little moments, and I thought that was kind of cool. I also like that they weren't afraid to get bigger actors to play these smaller parts. You know what I mean? And that those bigger actors weren't too good to play these smaller roles. You know what I mean?
Yeah. But were they really big at the time?
Probably up and coming, I would say.
Yeah.
Up and coming, at least.
They became something, right?
Yeah.
Okay, so we've talked about the writing, we talked about the acting. What do you think about the direction, Rob Reiner's direction?
Okay, so as far as the directing goes, I don't think it's anything special other than directing the acting. I thought he did a great job directing the actors, because that's what the movie is. It's an acting movie, and they, like I said, they all did a great job. So a lot of credit has to go to Rob Reiner for doing that. But I don't think it really stands out as far as like what he did with the camera. I don't think it's anything really special. It's good. It's not bad, but I don't think there's anything really, really amazing about it. And there's even some moments where I think, well, why did they do that? That's kind of weird.
Can you think of anything specific?
Let me think here. Oh, you know what I can say is this. There's like one really cool moment where they, in the courtroom, where the camera goes behind a column, and then it comes out behind the column into a different scene.
Right.
So like, they use the whole editing to make it, a cool transition. And if had they done more of that, I would have respected it a lot more. But because there's like few and far between moments like that, it was kind of like, this is just a point and shoot type movie.
Yeah. So the camera work, I would say, is functional, right? I was enjoying like the harsh lighting overhead of the characters, and I was like, oh, this looks like something out of JFK or something. I was like, and then I realized, oh, it's Robert Richardson doing the cinematography. The guy that did JFK. He's done all of Quentin Tarantino's movies since Kill Bill. He's done Scorsese's movies. Like, he won for The Aviator. He won for Hugo. So the cinematography is there. We mentioned the scene earlier where it's Markinson and Kendrick and Jessup. And some of the shots, you have Jessup who's in just plain light. You have Kendrick who's in plain light because they they're very military. They know exactly what they're doing. But then you cut to a shot of J.T. Walsh, who's another guy, sorely missed that's popped up and everything. You cut to shots of him, and his face is half in shadow.
Yeah.
It's darkened because he's conflicted about the moment, right? I thought that was good.
Yeah, that's good.
But I agree with you. It's mostly, other than let's move the camera while they're talking so not everybody's sitting. It's mostly just the dialogue is good enough. I don't have to worry about it. As long as I shoot the actors with the dialogue, then it'll be great. It's not like talking about other Sorkin movies. For The Social Network, I think having David Fincher direct The Social Network was like an embarrassment of riches, because you had like the Sorkin rich, funny dialogue, but then you had Fincher, who's like the meticulous, like detail-oriented, and so the shots look very cinematic a lot of the, like the coloring and the lighting and the way that you're kind of ambivalent towards the characters. And I think that's the difference. Sorkin is a very good writer, but if you let him go, like the politics, a lot of times they just let him do whatever he wants. I think the difference between this and The Social Network, you watch behind the scenes stuff of The Social Network, and it's Fincher sitting like this close to the actors going, okay, why are you saying this? Why do you need to say this word? Why does this word come before that word? And I think it works beautifully in The Social Network because Fincher is making the actors think of and live every single word of dialogue that they're saying and why they're saying it.
Well, here's the thing too. Rob Reiner is working with these like professionals. You know what I mean? And when you have the best, you kind of don't have to do much directing. You kind of just got to sit back and say, okay, you've got what you need on the page. You can do your research and get your character. Just give me what I've hired you to do. Give me your best performance, and then that becomes easy. So if you're working with someone who's not quite as skilled or not as talented a professional as these A-listers, you know what I mean? Maybe you have to kind of get in their face and be like, why are you saying that? What's the motivation? But I can see Rob Reiner kind of standing back and letting them just do their thing. Whereas I can see David Fincher almost micromanaging the set, you know what I mean, and kind of getting in their way. And I don't know what's better, I don't know what, because they're both got good results. So it's like, what's the better way to do it?
Right. I just think with Fincher, it's directing and screenwriting and acting all perfectly entwined with each other. So it comes off as a much richer, because in A Few Good Men, the writing is good, but you're noticing the writing a lot of the time, which is true of a lot of Sorkin stuff. But you are that was a really good line, or I like how he said that line, because it's just pointing and getting the actors on camera saying that stuff, right? Which, When Harry Met Sally and Nora Ephron's dialogue is really good. I guess you could say he's kind of like
I don't like Nora. Yeah, sorry. I don't like I don't like her movies.
Okay. Well, you know what I'm saying though. It's he just has a script and he just shoots it, right? Where Princess Bride, I think, would probably be his best movie because he's got the William Goldman dialogue. The thing that I notice about Princess Bride, we talked about Rob Reiner not being very cinematic, but when it's the Wesley and Inigo stuff and the Buttercup stuff, the backgrounds look really fake, and that always used to bug me. Like, that's obviously a set, or that's not really a rock that they're jumping on. You can see it moving. But the thing that works about Princess Bride is that's the kid's imagination as the grandpa is talking. That's how a little that's how a little 10-year-old kid would see things or hear things. So in that way, that the kind of the amateurishness of the movie, the look of it, it works because that's kind of the point.
Yeah. No, I see that. Is there anything in A Few Good Men that you think could have been better? Is there anything that you think, well, that didn't work, or this could have been done differently?
Okay, well, the only thing that I really, number one, it's a Hollywood product. So the scene, I call it the triple whammy, where you find out that Markinson's killed, and then Demi Moore, she puts on, or Galloway puts on, what's the other guy's name? Not Dawson, Downey, is that his name? They put Downey on the stand, and they find out that, oh my gosh, he wasn't actually there when they were given the code red. And then you find out that Tom Cruise yells at or Cappy yells at Galloway, and they all split up or whatever, and that's the low point. So it's a triple whammy. That's very Hollywood, right?
Yeah.
You can see it coming, and it goes down easy because I expected that to happen, right? It doesn't hit hard because you can see it coming, and you can see them.
And you know they're going to get out of it.
Yeah, you know they're going to
gonna
get out of it. My flaw, the biggest flaw that I had this time is the part where Joe stands up and she goes, "I strenuously object to this line of questioning," and they have that fight. I thought that part of weakness, because she's been a really strong character up to that point, right? She's the one that's putting Tom Cruise in his place. The point of every scene that she's in is to put Tom Cruise in his place at the end, so he doesn't win the arguments.
You haven't talked to a witness or looked at a piece of paper.
So that part where she strenuously objects, it seemed out of character for that moment, just to give her a weakness, when that weakness comes later, where she's cross-examining Downey on the stand. So that part of the strenuously objecting, I don't think they needed that part. It just seemed to come out of nowhere for me.
Then might have was that just a reason to give Kevin Pollak his moment? You know what I mean? Because he has his monologue right after that.
Yeah, that could be it too, to give his moment to shine, right? Which again ties in with this is a Hollywood product. You're not really supposed to internalize it. You're just supposed to enjoy it in the moment. But I just thought with that weakness, it's good that has a weakness, but then there's a weakness almost instantly later, like in the next couple of scenes. So I thought, well, that would have been better to have that there, to have her show a sign that she's not perfect. But I think those are my only issues with it. You know, the movie ends with the big curse at the end on the screen. It's very Hollywood.
I was going to bring that up because that's one of the two things that I don't like about the movie is first of all the end, because it's not the end. You know, there's more to it. Jack and Dawson and Downey are going to go on and get discharged, and their lab becomes civilians again. You're going to have Caffey possibly fight another courtroom case, something. It's like it's not the end. There's more to it than this. It's this like emotion. It's this awesome energy, and it's all this great acting. And at the very end, you see this big curse of the end, and you just go, "What the freak is that?" Like that doesn't even belong here. That belongs in like a a fairy tale or something. It doesn't belong in this movie. So it was kind of like, and I watched his commentary, and he was like, "I just thought it'd be nice to have the end at the end." It was like, well, that right there tells me that you really weren't directing this movie. He really didn't have like a real clear vision of what he was doing. He just had the actors do their best, and he got lucky. He had really great actors. You know what I mean?
Which works, right? It works. I feel like having the end. It feels like a play. Like, curtains. You just watched the movie. Tune in next time. That kind of thing.
Here's the thing too. I didn't want this movie to end. When I first saw it at your house, I was like on the edge of my seat the entire time, and I wanted more. I wanted to keep going. I was like, what's going to happen now? What are they going to do next? What's the next part of the story? That's all I cared about. So seeing the end was kind of like, what? It kind of took me away. Like, oh, it's over. I can't watch it anymore. I can't really keep enjoying this because I really was enjoying it.
Right.
And the other thing I want to mention is the whole montage with Santiago. The whole movie is about Santiago's death.
Okay.
And we don't really get to meet Santiago and get to know him very well. So I really kind of wish they'd have more involvement with that character and just more history with him, so we can get to know him better, and so we can have that moment to really feel like it's important we figure out who did this and why this happened, and so that we don't let him die in vain, so to speak. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
But when you don't know much about the character and you're talking about him the entire time, but you don't really know who this character is, it's almost like, who cares who it is, and who cares how he died or why he died?
Who the is PFC William T. Santiago?
You know what I mean? So I wanted to have more of Santiago.
Right. He was just kind of he was the catalyst for helping everything go into place.
I understand that, but I just wanted to invest more with that character. I wanted to be more involved in it because you want to like this guy they're talking about. You know what I mean? He's the reason for the whole movie. If not for him, there'd be no movie.
Right. Okay. So let me, I guess we're coming to the end of the conversation here. Let me just ask you a question as far as flaws go. Roger Ebert's review of the movie, he thought it was good, but then he thought at the end, you see Cruise say, this is what I'm going to do. I'm going to bring him in. I'm going to get him so high up on himself that he's going to admit that he did it because I know that he wants to do it, right? And Ebert thought for Ebert, that killed the movie for him because all the suspense was all of a sudden gone from the movie because they told you exactly how they were going to beat him, and then that's how they did it. Do you agree with that?
I can see that. I don't know if I agree with it as much, but I can see that. I can see what he's saying there. Because that is what happens.
Yeah. But I just think that I get his point, but I think the suspense is in whether or not he's going to go for it. You know, because Cappy has that moment where he pauses and he doesn't know if he should go through with it, and he looks at Joe and he looks at Sam, and Sam goes, yeah. And so they have that little moment there, and then he changes and says, no, I'm just going to go for, I'm not going to be my typical give it up and plea bargain. I'm going to go for it. I'm going to make this guy pay. So I think that the fun of it is in the suspense, and seeing Nicholson up on a high giving that speech, he gets him, and it's a crowd pleasing moment. I think that works.
Yeah,
so,
I think it works too. So
yeah, so I don't think that's a weakness. So was there anything else that you wanted to talk about with A Few Good Men? Any final notes before we go into our judgment of it?
Nope, I think I've covered everything. So
you see what I did there? It's a courtroom movie, so I said judgment of it. Yeah. I just thought of that. Anyway, so okay, so no final. I think that's our final word. It's a very Hollywood product. It's entertaining. Where do you come up? Is it worth a remake or worth remembering?
I think it's worth remembering. Having it be remade, I don't think they'll find the same magic they found the first time. I don't think they'll be able to get any actors who can do what those actors did, with that script in that moment.
Yeah,
I don't see a need to remake it.
Okay, and I would agree with you. I think the movie, I wouldn't call it perfect, but as an experience, I don't see a way that you could improve it. It does what it needs to do. The acting is fantastic. Everybody nails their dialogue. And yeah, the direction it's not exciting, but it's not distracting from the acting or the writing. You know what I mean? There are the overhead lighting or the shadows and there are instances where it is artistic. But as far as, it's like an old-time Hollywood movie. You just want to go and see Cary Grant or see Jimmy Stewart or, Gloria Swan. You want to see them act and do their thing. And this movie, I think, it accomplishes that.
Delivers on it. Yeah. Yep, exactly.
So I think that's our final word. Absolutely worth remembering. And we'll be right back. Okay, so that was our discussion on A Few Good Men. Hopefully we didn't get too many Kevin Pollak fans too upset by not talking about him enough.
Real quick, while you're on that, I did hear a story that Kevin Pollak was always told on set, you got to do Jack for Jack. And he was
no.
I'm going to look over to Jack and say, this is what you sound like. So that would have been kind of fun.
Did you ever watch the Critic, the offshoot of The Simpsons with John Lovitz as the main character? Did you ever watch that show?
Yeah.
It would come in and he would do like a fake movie, and they would do like, this is the movie we'll be talking about this week. And one week he came in and goes, and this week we'll be talking about A Few More Good Men with Jack Nicholson, Christian Slater, and William Devane. And then it cut to the scene and is like, you can't handle the truth. Christian Slater goes, I can handle the truth. Nicholson goes, you can't handle the truth because the truth is you talk like me, you act like me. You don't have an original bone in your body. And Christian Slater goes, that's a freaking lie. And then it cuts to the judge, and judge goes, court stenographer, would you read that back to me? And William Devane goes, what am I, a freaking minor bird? Yeah, I can just imagine. I think Nicholson has one of the most parodied voices. Like, it's really easy to parody. And even Cruise does it in the movie, right?
Yeah, he does. That's true. But Kevin Pollak does a great impression of him. It's spot on. He's one of the greatest impressionists we have.
Doesn't he do good impressions of like everybody? I know he does a good Shatner and a Walken.
Walken, yeah.
Obviously, yeah. Okay, that's cool. Well, was there anything that you in our little break there that you wished you talked about that we didn't? Any little snippets or little ideas?
No, I covered everything on my notes.
Okay.
What about you? Is there anything you want to bring up?
We mentioned the difference between the play and the movie. We brought it up, but we didn't really talk about the differences. There's one bit that they added for the movie where Cappy has Sam go and get the two airmen from the Air Force Base.
Right.
And I guess he comes in to kind of throw Nicholson off of his game or whatever. But then at the end, he doesn't use it. So I thought, that was completely pointless. Why did you introduce that at all?
I think it was just an intimidation thing. Like, we're going to bring him in just so he thinks that we've got something on him so that he'll, buckle under pressure.
Right. But then Cappy does the whole thing where he traps him anyway and gets Nicholson to get so high in himself that he admits to ordering the code red. I just think if you drop the airman stuff out, it wouldn't have done anything. It wouldn't have mattered.
Yeah, I can see that.
But then there are other things. I think there are just lines of dialogue. They did have William Goldman come in and do some script doctoring for the movie, which, again, we talked about Princess Bride. And then Sorkin liked some of the changes so much that he integrated that into the actual play. So when they performed it again, those changes were in there.
Okay, did you give Goldman credit for that in the
play? I think... yeah, I don't know. I think as a script doctor, that's just a job that you take, and then yeah, you find. And then Aaron Sorkin worked as a script doctor on The Rock. He wrote some of Connery's or Cage's lines and things like that. I guess the other thing I want to talk about is we talked about the American President. We talked about Social Network, Charlie Wilson's War. But what is your favorite Aaron Sorkin screenplay, and what other screenplays that he's written do you feel we didn't get a mention on it? We didn't talk about Malice, did we?
No, I like Malice. A Few Good Men is probably my favorite. Malice is probably a close second, actually, when you bring it up.
Right.
Because we talked in the episode that I didn't like how later on in his career he went super political in his screenplays, and so I can't really follow him anymore. Like I almost kind of stopped. I was just like, I can't watch his stuff anymore. Not basically what he's saying. Who cares what he's saying? Just the fact that it's political is what bugs the crap out of me. I just don't like that people inject that into their writing.
Right.
I just want to see a good story with some good acting and some good filmmaking.
And it got really heavy. I think the problem with The Newsroom when that debuted is it was mostly politics stuff.
I did watch the first few seasons of that, whatever, and like I say, I just had to stop watching it because I was like, this is just it's overkill at this point. It's all politics now, and I just can't.
Absolutely. I think, like I said, Few Good Men was a good step in the foot in the door kind of thing, and it's very emblematic of his, his snappy dialogue and all that. I think, again, I mentioned that I just think he's gotten, I think the high point from me, I haven't seen like the later ones. I haven't seen Molly's Game. I haven't seen Jobs, whatever the name of the movie that was. I know there was a couple of them. I just think that The Social Network, I think, would be his richest screenplay, I guess you would say, because it has it's just very nuanced. I don't know if A Few Good Men is nuanced. I don't know if I could call it that. It's just very, again, nothing wrong with that. It's very old Hollywood, right?
Yeah.
I just think that Zuckerberg in The Social Network screenplay is, you don't like him, but you sympathize with him. You know why he's doing what he's doing, even if you don't. Maybe I got that wrong. You see why he's doing it, but you don't really sympathize with him because he's unlikable. But that's interesting. And there's a scene with, we mentioned briefly, Timberlake, his first scene where he's slept with a girl or whatever, and they have that conversation in the morning. It's a very, very charming conversation. And Sorkin has a gift for making even these insufferable douchebags sound like charmers. And then, like I mentioned, I just think having Fincher there as another layer to make everything combined, I just think The Social Network is a masterclass in everything working together as a whole.
Yeah, it's a good script. The best thing about that movie for me is Andrew Garfield. I think he's the best thing about that movie.
Yeah.
I'm not a big fan of Jesse Eisenberg, and a lot of things. Not a big Timberlake fan either, really. But so I have a hard time getting through it because of those reasons. But I love all of Andrew Garfield's scenes. Whenever he's on screen, I'm glued to the screen. I want to watch and see what he's going to do and say.
Yeah.
And he's got a lot of the dialogue too, so that helps. He's got some good dialogue. But as far as the movie as a whole, I don't think it compares to A Few Good Men or Malice. Those as a whole are much better films than Social Network.
Okay. That's great. That's great. Nothing wrong with that. Nothing wrong with
Even
that.
though it's David Fincher, and I'm a huge Fincher fan. You know what I mean? I love David Fincher, but like I feel like it's just, I don't know. Maybe because it's about Facebook. Who cares about Facebook? You know what I mean? I don't care about how Facebook started. Who cares? You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I'd rather watch someone actually have a purpose and a motivation for a character and a story and a plot line, all that stuff. Who cares? I don't care about Facebook. You know what I mean?
Right.
So that's my Facebook rant, I guess.
Okay. Nothing wrong with that. Absolutely not. So yeah, I don't have anything. I think we covered everything we needed to cover during the meat of our episode, as I like to say. Okay, so I think that'll do it on our conversation on A Few Good Men. Again, how it works, how every podcast works, I guess, like this, is I chose, you chose, now it's going to be my turn to choose again. I think for next time, I'm going to pick a movie. This was one of my original choices. It was big since I was a kid, big in my life. We just haven't gotten around to it for whatever reason. So I think I'm going to go ahead. If you can hear this, this is the movie we'll be covering next time.
Okay.
See that? Can't really see it.
Let's say Flash Gordon.
Flash Gordon, yeah, that's what it is. All right, that didn't really work out the way I wanted it to. Anyway, Flash Gordon from 1980, big camp classic, known very well for its Queen soundtrack. Like I said,
I thought you were going to go a different route. I thought you were going to go like Spinal Tap or something, since we had the whole Christopher Guest, Rob Reiner thing going on.
Yeah,
But,
I thought about that. I thought about a couple others, but yeah, I think it's just time to bite the bullet on Flash Gordon. I think I want to do that now. But yeah, we'll choose Flash Gordon for next time, starring Max von Sydow, Sam Jones, and yeah, a cast of nothings.
All right, then. Well, for NostalgiaCast, I'm Jonny Craddock.
And I'm Darin Lundberg.
And we'll see you next time.
We'll see you next time, guys. Thanks.